your body is designed to be healthy. There are very few purely genetic diseases. You are born and your body, every chance it gets, does what it takes to deal with the stresses in front of it in order to be healthy and to stay healthy. We're not designed genetically to get old, be sick for a really long time, and then die. We're designed to be healthy because our body's constantly struggling to do so. As a matter of fact, the stresses that we adapt to make us stronger.
Today, on the Hero of the Hour podcast, Mark Murphy is joined by Dr. Stephen Geanopulos, also known as Steve G, a renowned figure in the realm of functional medicine. With over 25 years of clinical experience, Dr. G has worked with patients worldwide to improve their health with personalized wellness solutions. In this episode, Stephen dives deep into the heart of functional medicine, revealing its transformative power and shedding light on its cutting-edge approaches that extend far beyond mainstream healthcare. Stephen illustrates the remarkable impact of functional medicine, from aiding individuals battling cancer to empowering those striving for peak physical performance. Tune in to learn about the intricate relationship between stress, inflammation, and the body's adaptive mechanisms, and how functional medicine equips individuals to not only cope with stress, but harness its potential to thrive.
Hello, everybody. It's Mark Murphy, founder and CEO of Northeast Private Client Group, and I'm here with my very good friend, Dr. Steve Geanopulos. Steve G, as he's known for. So, Steve, welcome to the podcast. So nice to have you on today.
Yeah, it's great to be here. Usually, I'm on podcasts that are about health and functional medicine and more academic in my world, and it's nice to be on a podcast that's more about wealth and business and kind of bring my expertise and bring some value to your crowd. So
Well, here's why
thank
I'm
you for having me.
excited about this today. Not only because I'm excited about this because I think the people who are watching this uh, clearly are people that are entrepreneurs or want to think like
Mhm.
entrepreneurs, and they want to create. We want to create multi-generational wealth. But I think it's almost impossible to create multi-generational wealth if you don't have health. And you are doing some things that are cutting edge, beyond cutting edge in healthcare. And I want to spend the time we have talking about this, but I just want to start, as I always start every call, is I call it the Hero of the Hour podcast. And as we've gotten to know each other, you've become a hero to me because of the work that you're doing. But I just want to start by just asking you to share who are some of your heroes, or or what does a hero mean to you? I'd love you to just spend a minute or two, and then let's get right into it.
The heroes that I have are I guess it's kind of cliche, right? Of course, my father, right? My dad. We try to that's always our first hero. And they say when you're before you're 13 years old, your dad is your hero. He's almost godlike, and then after you're 13 years old, your dad is the devil. and then and then you become an adult and you have a great relationship, and then you realize why he was your hero to begin with. So yeah, of course, my father was my hero, my first hero. And then other heroes in my life really are mentors, I guess, people who've kind of been guideposts for me, for helping me find my way. They don't have famous names or anything like that, but they certainly mean a lot to me. They could be mentors, professors. They could be really close friends, and everything in between.
I just turned 50 11 years ago, and just my recent birthday 11 years ago. But that you hear about a lot about Western medicine, you hear about Eastern medicine. I don't think a lot of people, even a lot of educated people, know a lot about functional medicine.
Mhm.
And I'd love to just spend a little bit of time before we even talk about the power of functional medicine. I want to talk about, could you just help people who are not up to speed, just get them up to speed about what functional medicine is?
Yeah, functional medicine is a way of looking at your health in a more holistic fashion, right? So the word holistic is kind of thrown around. It just means, natural and uh, not involving medication, and that's all true. But really, functional medicine is a way of looking at how your environment, and your environment could be your sleep, your environment could be your nutrition, your environment could be your physical surroundings, your environment could be your relationships, right? So how your environment can contribute to how your body is performing, right? Performance. So functional medicine will then kind of take some cues from that and look at some markers, right? So markers could be the data that comes from my aura ring. Like an aura ring is something that people wear that kind of tracks their sleep. We could gather markers from our blood work. We can gather markers from our blood pressure, or we can look at different forms of testing. But it's really a functional medicine practitioner's job to take all of these markers, to take all of these environmental cues, and say, how can we help someone either improve their performance, or improve their health, or reverse disease, right? So that's kind of the model that we use, and it's always, what can we do to get into those lifestyle issues in order to make these changes without requiring pharmaceuticals, or requiring pharmaceuticals as little as possible. And why do we want to avoid pharmaceuticals? Simply because it's not, pharmaceuticals can certainly save your life, but we know that pharmaceuticals won't make you healthier. So our objective in functional medicine is to improve your health.
If you're somebody that has chronic disease,
Mhm.
you talk about how that does. So chronic disease. Maybe you could tell us a story or two, because and by the way, for people that don't know you, Steve has a celebrity clientele. There's a who's who. If he could name drop all day, and we'd run out of time with just him name dropping of the folks he works with. But I'd love to talk about, maybe a story or two without mentioning any names of some
Mhm.
chronic disease that people commonly have, and what functional medicine does to help mitigate those symptoms, or actually even reverse them in many cases.
I'll and that's a great question, and I appreciate that. We have patients that come to us with everything from, they could come to us with stage 4 cancer, and they could come to us as high performing athletes that just want to perform at a higher level, and everything in between. And
Right.
we kind of apply all of these principles in the same manner. So I do not treat stage 4 cancer of any kind. I'm not an oncologist, and I don't play one on television. However, people with cancer will come to me and say, what can I do to contribute to the relationship I have with my oncologist? What can I do to play a role in mitigating the disease process, or mitigating the negative effects of the medication that I'm getting? So that would kind of be an example. And again, I have a great story, and this is one of the most challenging stories I ever had. So there is a type of brain cancer that is out there called glioblastoma, and it might be the worst diagnosis that anyone could ever hear come out of a doctor's mouth. And the overwhelming majority of people with this diagnosis will not survive 13 months.
John McCain, yeah.
Yeah, John McCain. The other one was Kennedy. Ted Kennedy also had that disease, and a dear friend of mine's brother had it in his 50s, and there are people who have it in their 30s and 40s. So it affects so many different people, and it's, again, the worst diagnosis. So this particular case that came to me, where she had already been 6 months into the diagnosis, and she had been already in a wheelchair. And they're like, well, we heard that you're super smart, and we heard that you can help. And I, my answer was, look, um, we all know the story here, right? We're not here to make an impossible disease go away. So I asked, what are your goals? What is it you want? And she said, I mean, she was amazing. I'll never forget her, because all she said was, look, I just want to live at home, want to go through this process, and I don't want to be on medication. I don't want to be delirious on my way out. And I want to be at home with my husband as long as I possibly can, as comfortably as I possibly can. So that, she wasn't asking a lot. She wasn't asking a lot at all. And what I said was, all right, well, in order to do that, you know, you've come a long way as in your disease process. This is advanced. So I'm going to give you some right recommendations that are going to be pretty harsh. So, you know, the first thing I have to know is there anything that you eat or drink or do on a daily or a regular basis that if I asked you to do without, you couldn't do it? Right? I mean, look, there are some people like, oh, don't take my coffee away, or
Okay, yeah.
you know, whatever. And she goes, and she saw where I was going with this, because again, in functional medicine, I, the doctor, do not cure you, the patient. I, the doctor, provide guidance to you, the patient, for you to go through that process yourself and to do it in the most cost-effective, you know, in the most measurably beneficial way to you. So she just turns to me and goes, listen, you tell me to eat cockroaches, I'll eat cockroaches. That's it. I'll do whatever. And I was like, all right, I have a partner here. And we put her through a process of ketosis, right? So ketosis, or a ketogenic diet. You hear a lot about a ketogenic diet. People are losing weight on their ketogenic diet, and that's all fancy and nice, but they're not really doing a ketogenic diet. A ketogenic diet is a medically induced diet. It's a diet for epilepsy, people with cancer. It's a diet that's very, very, very difficult to maintain on your own. You can use ketosis, and I use ketosis in my own physiology, my own health all the time. But this person needed to aggressively go into ketosis in a significant way. So we got her to do that. And, you know, she was already in a wheelchair 6 months after the diagnosis, with a 13-month expectancy. And she probably exceeded that 13 months by 14, 15, or even 16 months, if I remember correctly. And she got all of her wishes. And, you know, it's in my profession, when you work with health, you don't tend to go to a lot of funerals, right? And this particular one, you know, I went to the services, and all I got was a sea of people thanking me for the work that I had done for her. And it was just so bizarre for me, because in my career, you know, your patients don't typically die, right? But this was a truly remarkable case of a very brave person, and a great family that supported her, and when she far exceeded her life expectancy based on her diagnosis. So that's one dramatic story. And then there's other stories of people who are suffering from obesity that want to get the gastric bypass surgery. They're concerned about it. They don't really want to do it. And then they hear about this new class of medications called GLP-1 agonists, which are kind of like Ozempic, et cetera. And, you know, most people would like to explore a way around surgery and medication, especially when there's side effects to both. So this was a young man, 32 years old, morbidly obese, had not had a interaction with a spouse or a girlfriend that he would wished desperately to have. He was suffering from severe depression. He was taking anxiety. He was taking a lot of psychotropic medication, and really didn't see a way out. And, you know, I'm not going to sit there and tell somebody who's suffering the way they are. And he was a full-blown diabetic and had no idea. And what I said was, look, this is fully reversible, but I can't do it for you. I, the doctor, cannot cure you, the patient, of type 2 diabetes. End of story. You ask any doctor in the world, can type 2 diabetes be cured? The answer is no. I, the doctor, can't cure you, the patient, of type 2 diabetes. But if you ask the question differently and you say, hey, doc, can I cure myself of type 2 diabetes? The answer is almost 100% yes. And here's how you do it. So this particular person went through the process, and within 8 months, they're down 80 pounds, going to the gym, going out on dates, no longer taking psychotropic medication, no longer suffering from anxiety and depression that he thought he was genetically predisposed to, and had been taking those medications for years. Those are two examples of things that are pretty dramatic that exist in the functional realm. And then you have, the ex NFL players who are, kind of going through their knee replacement surgeries and suffering the effects of post-concussion syndrome, and they might be in their 50s and 60s. And I've been very fortunate to work with post-concussion syndrome, and there's amazing things that you can do, because post-concussion syndrome is kind of like the early cognitive decline that you see in early Alzheimer's. It's not too different. And when somebody has had repeated head injuries and they're headed down that path in their late 40s, early 50s, and 60s, they want to know if there's something that can be done other than the medications for cognitive decline, which are horrible. And we have no shortage of those cases too. So it is, it's amazing what the body can do when you use diet, lifestyle, and nutrition as medicine. And that's why we call it functional medicine.
Everybody that's watching this, whether they're a entrepreneur, they're a corporate executive, a stay-at-home mom and dad, could be everything under the sun. I don't know anybody that's not at 140% capacity.
Mhm.
What role does stress have, and how do you help people deal with stress? And I think, and also the inflammation that comes from not taking care of yourself. Those are the two things I hear about all the time: stress, and I hear about inflammation in your body.
Yeah. So, like, what is inflammation? What does it feel like? What is it? I mean, if I kick you in the shins, you have inflammation, right? It's a local inflammation response. It causes a black and blue spot on your leg. You have a little swelling. That's inflammation. But that's not the inflammation that most people are experiencing. The inflammation most people are experiencing is what we call systemic inflammation. It's inflammation that actually circulates throughout your body, and it has an impact on every single organ system in your body, especially your brain. So, stress is inevitable, right? Let's not pretend that there is a life without stress, only it's not life, right? The cemeteries are full of people with no stress. But the question is not, how do I get rid of stress? The question is, how do I adapt to stress? And that's really, and there's something called eustress and distress. So distress is what you feel when you go skydiving and you jump out of the airplane and you forgot that you didn't put your parachute on. That's distress, right? Like, that's a really stressful event. And then eustress is you jump out of the airplane with the parachute. Now, most people look for that level of heightened adrenaline junkies, they call them. That's a heightened level of stress that people thrive on and they benefit from it. So you got to ask yourself, is the stress you're experiencing in your daily life, in your business, good stress or bad stress? I am doing a lot of things in my career that are incredibly stressful, but I'm having a blast because I'm doing exactly what I want to do. So I'm kind of capitalizing on that adrenaline junkie kind of thing where I'm, going from meeting to meeting, patient to patient, doing things differently. I have this whole new social media thing going on that's really been a positive influence on me as a doctor. And we can certainly talk about that, but so the question is, can you adapt to stress? Are you putting yourself in stressful situations that you want to be in? If the answer to those are no, I'm not adapting, and I'm in I'm in situations that I'm not able to deal with, well, then you better get your ass in order, right? You better know your fitness routine. You better know your diet and lifestyle, because those are the tools that your body is going to use to help you adapt. So if you're stress eating and you're, like, oh, I'm so stressed out, I'm just going to quickly go to KFC and pick up some fried chicken, well, you're asking for trouble. You're asking for your body to fail. You're saying, please fail.
I just don't think as somebody who, I already told you I turned 60 last year. And the idea to me is to stay as a peak performer, to have the energy that I have every day.
Mm-hmm.
I have got to make sure that, I've all of a sudden started to take my health very, very seriously because I want to stay as a peak performer, not only into my 60s, but well beyond.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't see how you can do that without functional medicine. I mean, I think the work that you're doing is incredible. And so I don't know how you're at peak performance if you're in chronic pain. I don't know how you stay in peak performance if you're dealing with all kinds of other maladies or inflammations or stress levels. If you can't deal with that, so I don't see how you can. I think that every person that's an entrepreneur or any person that's a core that's in that world or deals in that world has to have a functional medicine doctor.
Without a doubt, Mark, you when somebody comes to my office or really is on a call like this with me, and they're between 40 and 60 years old, I usually say the same thing. I say, look, you're at a very unique time in your life. You got a choice. And this is a good choice to have. You can either stay young or get old really fast. You have to decide. If you do nothing, I can promise you're going to get old really fast. But if you want to stay young, there's a process to do that. And you'll hear a lot about longevity and there's all kinds of people in my world that are kind of becoming gurus on the topic of longevity. But what we're saying is, how can we best adapt to our environment? Now, the second half of the adaptation question that you asked me, or the second half of the question you asked me earlier, was on inflammation. Well, I will tell you, inflammation, the majority of it in all of us comes from one place. And no one's going to like this, but it is what it is. It comes from the interaction between the outside world and the inside world. And the outside world is anything outside of your bloodstream. The inside world is anything inside of your bloodstream. Where those two areas come really close together and interact with each other is where we digest food. Food is the outside world. Your bloodstream is the inside world. Your small intestines is where they come together. We break the food down. We take in the nutrition and we keep out the bad stuff. That system breaks down. It breaks down because of the world we live in, because of the country we live in, because of the stress that we experience, because we are trying to function like a very young person as we get older. What happens is things start to leak across that barrier between your food and your bloodstream that causes your immune system to react. And when your immune system reacts, it creates one thing, inflammation. And that inflammation circulates around your body. That's the single biggest cause of chronic inflammation. Now, what will break that barrier down the most and the fastest is the stress that we experience in our life that we're not adapting very well to. So hopefully I kind of squared that circle on your questions there.
I want to get to your, I think you and Kim Kardashian are two of the best social media stars I know out there. You're exploding. I want to get to that in a minute. But just one last thing before we move on to that. Just give us a summary of where's functional medicine now, but where do you see functional medicine in the next 3 to 5 years? What's the future of functional medicine?
It's a good question because the truth is we don't know. No one's really taken the time to define it. Part of the reason that we don't define it because we won't let anyone own it. Functional medicine ceases to become functional medicine when it is owned by, the biggest companies out there that are basically influencing our health is the pharmaceutical industry. So I hate to say it, but if mainstream medicine gets their hands on functional medicine and wrestles it out of the hands of the people like myself who practice and understand the body a little bit differently than traditional medicine, well, then we're going to lose what functional medicine is. So let me just elaborate on that for a second. When you get your blood work done, historically, people, in the corporate world would go to their doctor twice a year or once a year, get their blood work done. They would sit with the doctor. All right, everything looks good. See you in 6 months or see you in a year. Or, oh, this doesn't look good. Here's a prescription. I want you to take this every day for the rest of your life. And usually that's in the realm, let's just say cholesterol or blood pressure or something of that nature. That's the cynical view of traditional medicine. But when they look at your blood work, what they're looking at is for things to be outside of the reference range that is written on that report. The problem is the reference range is not based on who's healthy and who's not healthy. It's based on what's common and uncommon. So the reference range you see on a lab report is based on the experience of the laboratory that you went to. It could be different from lab to lab, city to city, and state to state. So I practiced in Manhattan for 23 years. And if you're on the Upper East Side, the laboratory reference ranges for liver enzymes and things of that nature were one set, a lower set of numbers. And then you just go 1 mile on the other side of the river in the South Bronx, and those numbers are far higher. Why? Because socioeconomically, that environment is far unhealthier, but it's just across the river and the reference ranges are different. So what constitutes a fatty liver on the Upper East Side and what constitutes a fatty liver in the South Bronx is different. So in functional medicine, what we say is, what is optimal for you? So we will say, this is the reference range. This may be the optimal range. Now, sometimes that's meaningful, sometimes it's not. But when you see patterns start to develop, you can kind of predict where somebody's going. You can hear the canaries in the coal mine screaming before any traditionally trained medical doctor will pick it up. So that's the beauty and the future, I believe, of functional medicine. That is where I think it's going, a better understanding of how your daily routine influences your markers. And then for us to look at your markers as a way to guide your daily routine to optimize your health, to give you the best outcome as far as longevity goes.
Yeah, well, I will tell you, I've become a believer in the sense that I believe that dealing, I as a firm, as you know, we're known for as the people who help people create multi-generational wealth. And I think that if you don't have your health, it's very hard to not only get it, it's hard to keep it. And so that's become part of the routine of that we talk about creating wealth. We have health right there. We believe in wealth, we believe in health, we believe in purpose, we believe in a number of other things. But you said something to me we had a few weeks ago that I thought was profound. I don't know if you paraphrased it from someone else, but when you deal with people on their wealth, people that want to create great abundance and wealth in this world have many, many dreams. What do you say about unhealthy people, Steve?
Well, they have one. So when you're healthy, you have thousands of dreams and goals and desires. When you're unhealthy, you only have one. And that I wish I I have no idea. It was probably one of my great relatives from 4,000 or 5,000 years ago in ancient Greece who said it. But the truth is, did you know that I was related to Aristotle? Did I tell you that? No, but seriously.
Yeah, 23 and me. You did that. You told me. Right? A third cousin. Yeah.
Correct. No, but seriously, the question about your health, I personally can't imagine fulfilling my vision for my business, my practice, my career, and my family without being healthy, right? So if I were not healthy, my children wouldn't see me get on my bike on the weekends. They wouldn't see me go to the gym. They wouldn't see me, my son is 6'5", and I still don't think he can beat me in a game of basketball. So, and I turned 40 13 years ago as well. So, it's when it comes to reaching those goals, I think most of the people listening to this can appreciate that you have to have your health in order to do so. But also, it goes to something my uncle said. My parents and my relatives, they all are immigrants from Greece, and so they were the first generation to create wealth in my lineage, right? Everybody else was just poor from a little village somewhere in Greece. So I remember my uncle saying that if there's $1 left for me to leave to my kids when I die, it's because I miscalculated.
Yes.
He wanted to enjoy every dime he ever made. And I love that because I mean, come on, you're not taking it with you, and your kids, if you raise them right, are going to be just fine. Now, I understand multi-generational wealth because they can stand on the shoulders of, right? We stand on the shoulders of giants. So it's great to leave our family our wealth as far as our properties and our businesses and all of the things. But we also should live long enough to thoroughly enjoy our lives right up until the end. I always say, your life is like a candle, right? You should burn brightly your entire life, and at the end, you go out. That is the ideal situation. Nobody needs to spend 20 years seeing their wealth burn away in a nursing home, or not having their mental capacity with them. So understanding your brain, understanding your body, understanding how humans die, right? I always talk, we always study mice and rats in research, and there's good value to doing that. But when rodents live a long time, they die of cancer. When humans live a long time, they die of cardiovascular disease. So the question is not, am I going to die of cardiovascular disease? Is I'm going to die with cardiovascular disease. We're all going to get it. There's no 90-year-old out there who doesn't have cardiovascular disease, but it doesn't have to kill you. It doesn't have to kill you. So that's kind of the mindset that we have around our health.
I just think what a world it lived where you can have people that are in discomfort or inflammation or have things that are preventing them from being their best selves. And you can mitigate that or eliminate that. I mean, what a powerful tool and a powerful business you have. I want to switch gears for a minute because I hear of a lot of people that are on social media that have a lot of followers, and they've got them disingenuously. They bought them. They've done other things to get this big following. When I found out that in less than a year, you organically got almost 1 million followers without buying a single one.
Mhm.
Tell us the Steve G story. How did you do that?
Yeah, I got to tell you. So I am 53 years old. I graduated 27 years ago, and I started my business the old-fashioned way, right? Getting out there, shaking hands, meeting people, developing relationships, and the last 10, 15 years of my practice has been just referrals, right? So people now use social media as a marketing tool, and I use social media to, post pictures of my kids playing soccer and videos and all the things. So I was with my accountability group, and if you don't have accountability groups, you're missing out on a lot. And I do love to talk about accountability groups, but in our group, we were just wanted to hold ourselves accountable to a higher standard, right? Say, look, social media is a real big deal. And if you have a great message, you should be sharing it. So let's all commit to sharing a message. So we thought about it, and I said, all right, I'll commit to a summer. So I started June 18th with the intention of doing, July, August, and just spend the summer posting 3 to 5 videos a week on Instagram. And from June 18th to August 31st, I went from 800 followers, which were just migrated friends over from Facebook, to 3,600 followers, 3,600 followers. So on August 31st, I was like, all right, thumbs up. I did a good job. I really increased my presence on social media, and I'm teaching people. And what did I decide to talk about? What I talk about every day, the things that I know best, the things I say to my patients for the last 25 years. So it's just a camera, just the way you see me now. If you go on my Instagram, this is it. This is the look. And I started posting these videos, and I woke up one day and I had 14,000. By the end of that night, I had 25,000. By the end of that week, I had 100,000. So things went viral. And what went viral was some explanations I had for how the body works. And one of them in particular was about blood sugar. I would just say, look, if I took all of your blood, Mark, and I put it in a bucket on my desk, it would be a sizable bucket, it'd be 5 liters. At any given time, 90 minutes after a meal, or 9 hours after a meal, or 9 days after a meal, or 9 weeks after a meal, it doesn't matter. Anytime 90 minutes after a meal, in your 5 liters of blood, you should have 1 teaspoon of sugar. Now, most people will put a teaspoon of sugar in their cup of coffee, but in 5 liters, you have 1 teaspoon of sugar. If you had a teaspoon and a half, you'd be a full-blown diabetic. If you had a half a teaspoon, you'd be in a coma. That's how tightly regulated sugar is in your blood. So you might be sitting there thinking, a teaspoon? I ate a half a chocolate cake the other day. There's a lot more teaspoons of sugar in that cake. But your body will go through heroic measures to extract all that sugar out of your blood as quickly as possible, because sugar is toxic. Any diabetic will tell you that. Sugar is toxic. And that explanation got people to say, oh my God, I've never heard it explained that way before. And it's not because I'm some genius. It's because I'm, I guess, a pretty good communicator. I know how to get a point across to my patients on something they think is so complicated, but it's not. We release a hormone called insulin. It pulls the sugar out. Simple as that. If you start fasting and you fast for 3 days and you don't eat anything, you make another hormone that puts sugar into your blood. It's called cortisol. And we have this balance. But the teaspoon is key. When you have more than a teaspoon, when you have a teaspoon and a half and you're a diabetic, well, the whole system breaks down and you start to develop disease that becomes what kills you. So
you go from 3,600 and now you're at just shy of 1 million.
Yeah, we're at about just close to 800,000. And, it's remarkable because I get messages from around the world. Mark, all doctors, or at least, chiropractors, which is how I got my profession started. There was always this idea that we should do some level of work that's pro bono. Attorneys do this, doctors do this, some level of work that's pro bono. And that was always, a small percentage of my practice. I am now helping people for free around the world. I get direct messages every day. I have people saying, I've been watching your videos for 6 months. I've lost 80 pounds. I'm no longer, taking medication for this, that, and the other thing. And all they do is watch my videos. So this is now, instead of one-on-one, I used to pat myself on the back for doing pro bono work one-on-one. Now I'm doing one on thousands and thousands and thousands of people. And it's remarkable because they're sending me their results all the time. And it's pretty amazing because we're not telling them to take this medication and that medication. We're just saying, make these lifestyle changes. Recognize that it's not that difficult. What I'm telling you to do is not difficult. It's just different. Reframe how people think of things and let them make the decision to make. I can't make you change, Mark. All I could do is say, I think this would work for you. Why don't you try it? You try it, you realize it's not that difficult, and you feel great. So you make the decision to keep on going. I don't force you to do that.
I think the $1 million question is, by the way, with all these followers, you're going to see people watch this podcast and they're going to say, there's almost nobody that says, this is something I'd like to explore more. Are you taking on new patients? Where do you tell me what happens if I'm watching this podcast and I say, I got to talk to Steve G. What do I do?
So yes, I do have a website, drsteveng.com, drsteveng.com. So drsteveng.com. And if you go on my Instagram, you can just go to the link in the bio there. Now, the 140% capacity that we're all at, it's not easy to get me one-on-one. And sometimes the waiting list can be long, or people may not be able to afford, but we're in the process now of making available Dr. G's products and services in a more democratized way. So all of that will be made available on our websites and on our Instagram. But again, the more I can empower people to do things on their own, and the people who really want to work with me directly are the ones who really want to know where they're at now. See, sometimes you know where you want to go. You have no idea where you're currently at, and that's where we use data to find out. And then you need to know how to get from where you are to where you want to go in a way that is going to be as quick as possible, as effective as possible. You want to make sure that you can get there. So those are the people that tend to still need to work with me one-on-one.
I just like to end the conversation by, first of all, thanking you. I thought this was terrific. I just think that, if you don't think functional medicine is not only the present but the future, I think you're missing something. And you are a very special, gifted person. And I just want to thank you for taking time to share time with us. But I just love you to just end the podcast with your your best wisdom. Give people what should they take away from this podcast, or what can they take away so they can have a bigger, better future?
The thing to take away from this podcast is realize that your body is designed to be healthy. There are very few purely genetic diseases. You are born, and your body, every chance it gets, does what it takes to deal with the stresses in front of it in order to be healthy and to stay healthy. We're not designed genetically to get old, be sick for a really long time, and then die. We're designed to be healthy because our body's constantly struggling to do so. As a matter of fact, the stresses that we adapt to make us stronger. So find out how to use stress to allow your body to adapt better, to be healthier, to have more energy, to have all the things that you want to get out of this body, which we all know is a limited amount of time.
Thank you. I enjoy. I know you're leaving in a day or two for Greece, so enjoy your Mediterranean diet for the next few weeks. You'll come back even healthier. And thanks, Steve. Thank you for everything.
You got it. Thank you, Mark. I appreciate the time.